Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Harrison, and this is your energy medicine power readings for Monday. And last week, I had a few questions about pains that I didn't get to because we were sort of on a different flow. So this week, I said if I recalled, I would talk a little bit about or share some techniques about pain relief. So that's what I'll do unless something else comes up that you might want to know. So I am just going to, I've got an iPad here and I'm just going to share to my other page so we can get some people on. And then we can get started once we get some people on. I actually don't have my candle here, so I'll grab that in a moment. So I am just going to share Rhombus Healing Arts with my personal page. While we'll wait for some people to come on. Come on, where are you? It is Monday, isn't it? All right. So there are many pain techniques, too many to actually go into tonight. However, I thought that once we get some people on and maybe we can ask what's been going on for them, and then we could try some of these techniques together so that you can see, hi Megan, you can see maybe what ones might be helpful to you or what ones that you might like the best. I personally have, hey Jared, I have my ones, the ones that I do, and that are my go-to and they work for me. However, not everybody is like me and not everybody is like you. Our energies are as individual as our thumbprint, as my teacher says. So I went and grabbed my manual because we're going to go through ones that they work, but they're not necessarily my go-tos. And it does depend on what pain, what type of pain and where it is. Hey Murray, hola. So, you know, nothing is it's not like one tool or one technique is going to work for everybody. And it's the same as behavior management in regards to, you know, difficult behaviors and whatnot. There are particular techniques. We have a toolbox. I say, I will arm you with your toolbox and you try these tools and techniques. And, you know, if you've got children, there will be some that will work for them and some that won't. And over time, you'll get to know what ones work for yourself, your friends or your family, and what ones are maybe not relevant to the types of pain or the types of conditions or experiences that you have, you know. So just to keep that in mind. Also, I suppose there's different lengths of time that you would use a tool or technique, and it might mean that you have to hold or do a particular, just say, a tapping of a particular point. So we will go into what's called zone tapping. I do use it occasionally. However, like I said, I have my go-to, which I've mentioned over and over the years because they are my go-to techniques for pain, the types of pain that I've experienced. When you have an injury, then obviously, you know, the pain threshold goes up a little and there's more tools or more advanced tools that you might bring in for those sorts of things. So welcome. Nice to see you all. I'm just going to share. I can't share to my page from there, so I found an old iPad because I still don't have a phone. Whoops. And interestingly enough, my house phone doesn't work either. So I haven't had any type of communication other than Facebook for nearly 2 weeks now. And it's been perfectly fine. Interesting how we get attached to things that really we don't need. We don't need. We might want, but we don't need. So has anybody got anything to tell me? Any stories? What's been happening? Have a little chat before we start because we've only got a handful of people on. I'm just sharing to my page. Tell me what's going down. Do any of you have pain, or is there a particular pain that you have had, or how can we do this? I don't want you necessarily to have anything right now, but if you do, we can look at a few. If not, we could talk about whatever you would like. It's just that one of the ladies last week asked me about pain, and I realised in the chat and I'd missed that question. So I said if I remembered that, I would go into some this week. So what's going on, people? Alexa, good morning. Yeah, always great to be connected. Okay, so I'm just sharing to my news feed and then we'll get started. So much has been happening that I really want to talk about. However, we'll see whether it's appropriate, because just because you've got stuff to talk about doesn't necessarily mean it's appropriate for the time and place, yeah? Okay. So if you would like to share with your groups, please feel free to do that and share the love. If not, fine. All right. If we do go into readings, I'm going to have to get my candle because I don't have the candle right here. It's over there, and I'd have to get up and get it. So what's been happening? Over the past week, I experienced pain on the entire right leg and lower back. This has eased. Over the past week. Okay, so let's go into a few go-tos, almost like I call it first aid. So if you get a pain, what are some of the things that you could do? And there are so many, so let's just see what comes as we go through. A lot of you may know, but you may not have it. So therefore, if you don't have it, it's not going to be helpful. Selenite is a stone that resonates at the vibration of 8. And using selenite, I swear by this now, and there's not many tools that I would say that. And in fact, yeah, there's not many at all, because I usually use the body to heal the body, okay? The body, mind, spirit to heal the body. However, sometimes an external tool is helpful, and selenite is one of those. I've done some short discussions on selenite, so if you're interested, actually I might post it in the chat later after this one, so that you can learn more about selenite and how to use it. But every single time that I've had an injury or an injury, so an accident, or when I had a car accident, when I've cut or injured myself, I've used selenite to assist with swelling and that throbbing. So when you've really hurt yourself, the injury throbs. Selenite is beautiful for, in my experience, taking that away completely. However, everybody's individual. So when you've probably heard this story before, I've got a big scar on my hand where I cut my hand. And what I did was, actually I've got I had a hair tie, and later on I put a sock on it to hold the selenite in place, and I slept like that. So, and I didn't have any swelling or bruising, and my friend who's a nurse said I should have got stitches, but I didn't, because it didn't seem necessary to me, you know, and it's healed beautifully. There is a slight scar there still, but, and, you know, I could go on and on about the different ways that I've used it. I use it in clinic for other reasons as well. It's just a beautiful stone. You can't wash it. It disintegrates. So, you know, we wipe them over with alcoholic wipes, or alcohol wipes, or whatever they're called, to clean them. Or you can put it into something and then use it on other people. But I have different ones, you know, for different things. This is my travel kit. I showed you this last week. So I have my cut crystal and a tiny piece of selenite, which literally this piece of selenite I've had for maybe 5 or 6 years, and it's been all over the world. And you know, I carry these. These are my first aid kits. So these are magnets, and this is a cut crystal and a piece of selenite and the stainless steel spoon. So that's what I carry with me. Let me just see if there's any questions. Good morning, Tammy. Okay. So are there any questions about the selenite before I move on? Okay, while you ask your questions, if there are any, I'll just move on to the figure eights, because I mentioned the eights with the selenite. But the reason is I've always done figure eights, like little infinity signs. So little figure eights in the field. So if you've got a headache, do a little figure eight. You're just doing figure eights in the field. What I found is if you do it, if it's a stronger pain, you do it with the selenite, figure eights with the selenite, it doubles it because of the resonance of the selenite. So that's my understanding of why that's helpful. So Alexa's saying, I keep using metal spoon and rubbed my feet on it. I've had friends do a Saya process and felt shift energies. I'm not sure what a Saya process is. Also kept reciting the Gayatri. Yeah. Also posted on energy medicine healing as well. Love your knowledge, first aid, awesome. Okay. So with, yes, a chant or a mantra is helpful. There's different ones for different things, but whatever is helpful to you. I have one, it's I'll post the name of it, but it's like the chant to the sun, and I just have it on repeat, like in the field. So I just, you know, well, I don't anymore because it was on my phone and my phone's dead, but so I'll have to download that again at some point, or maybe not. But there are particular frequencies, music, sound that resonate with us more than others, and that will change along your journey because you will change. And so what worked for you in the past may not work for you now, or what works for you now may not work for you in a year. So it's about understanding that we're on this evolution, on this developmental journey, and we're shifting and changing. So let me just see what else I wanted to say about that. Okay, so figure eights. So Alexa, for instance, if I had let me go through, I'll try and be more linear, you know, ABC 1, 2, 3. It's not my way of working. However, it might be more helpful to go through how I would look at it from my perspective. So if I had an ache, you know, an aching knee, occasionally I'll get an ache in my knees because, you know, I'm ex-Defence Force and my knees are, my cartilage in my knees are shot. And so if ever a piece of that cartilage gets stuck, I do figure eights or I'll use selenite. If I have swelling, I'll usually place my hand on my knee. So I'll go into that. It's called siphoning pain. I do it a little bit differently to how I'm going to share it, but how I'm going to share it is something more known, I suppose. So your left hand, it's almost like the magnet. You've got the push and the pull. So the, you know, the mother and the father, or the left and the right, the positive and the negative, or the negative and the positive, and those sorts of things. So when you place your left hand on the pain or on the injury, it's as if you're pulling the pain or the energy out, and your right hand is, or like, getting rid of it. So you can place your, just say, I'll do it on my shoulder. I'm placing my left hand on my, or chest, because I can't quite reach my shoulder. And my right hand is out siphoning the pain. And you would breathe that. So you're pulling, so the left hand is pulling the energy away, because pain is an excess of energy, usually. Okay, so pain is an excess of energy. So we're siphoning the pain, and that's what this technique is called. So you would, you know, have your arm out, but you could just have it down, and then you can you can swap and place your left hand up. So it's like you're then bringing in, you're not necessarily, but you're allowing the energy to come in a new way, because we don't create energy, so I don't want to say it that way. So you could left hand siphon and then change it. That's very similar to, so I don't use that a lot. I very rarely do, but it works well. It's just not, you know, it's personality types, what your go-tos are. What the next one I'm going to tell you is something that I generally do, and that is, so if I had a pain in my shoulder, I would be almost like clearing a chakra. So I would be doing counterclockwise turns on it, and then I would do a clockwise turn on it. So it's the same thing. We're pulling and pushing, pulling and pushing. So drawing something out, drawing something in. So we're drawing out the excess of energy, and then we're allowing it to settle where it needs to, if that makes sense. So that's one of my go-tos. Let me just see what's... Oh, okay. So Tammy's saying, I have been working at a camp as a landscaper. All the walkways there are gravel. I leave in such a bad mood, let alone my achy feet. Any suggestions? I'm going to bookmark that for a moment. I just want to, while I'm, I just want to, as I go through them, just see if you've got any questions about what I've said. So about the eights, the selenite, the siphoning, or the basically the circles, or the little mini chakra clearings. The reason why, so I'll add to that while I wait, and then I'll answer Tammy's, because but we're going to go slightly off for Tammy's question. The reason why the counterclockwise and the clockwise works, we're not clearing a chakra as such necessarily. You might be if that's where your pain is, or it might be a minor chakra. We have, anywhere we have an injury, yeah, we'll say an injury. I was just seeing what else we could call it. There will be an impact to our aura, our energy fields. And that could be a hole, a tear, a rip, a fraying. In general, I just look at it as an indication of, you know, in your energetic map of where there's been a disruption. And so, for instance, who was it that Alexa was saying she had she had pain? We could scan that and go, is there something in the aura that it's an old injury that's because there's a thinning or a hole or an access point through that field, you're more susceptible to pain or injury in that area. So by correcting or bringing that field, I knit it back together, but you can do the circles, right? The counterclockwise and then the clockwise. I tend to find where that hole or that inflammation is, and then I imagine with my intention, because energy moves with intent, that I'm almost plaiting or weaving that field back together. So that's how I do it. But all you've got to remember is that if you have a pain and you do counterclockwise turns over it, and then give your hand a little shake, and then do some clockwise turns over it, you know, 2, 4, or 6 each way. And then you could maybe do some figure eights as well, because figure eights in the field also correct the layers of the aura or the biofield. So these tools I'm telling you have sort of multiple uses, but this isn't a class as such. So I'm just giving you things that I feel that you'll be able to use. If it sounds too complex, please ask and I'll explain a bit more, but I don't want to tell you things that, you know, I don't want to assume you don't know either. So you might already know. Okay. Hey, Jennifer. So let me just go through that. Stretching as well. I'll get to Tammy in a moment, but stretching anywhere that you've got pain. So if you've got a sore neck, stretching. So starting at the middle. If you've got a sore throat, this is one of my go-tos. I swear by stretching. You need to stretch so energy can move. Energy needs to have space to move as well. So like I said, pain is often an excess of energy because it can't flow. So if you create space for it to flow, often the pain will dissipate, if not completely go, okay, depending on whether there's injury or not. So in my life, I've had a lot of throat problems. So stretching the chambers of the throat. So we've got the 7 chambers or the 7 chakras within the throat as well. And then we've got the okay, I'm just going to wait a minute because it says my internet has cut out. So I'll just see if it comes back. Okay, am I still there for you? Because my video is saying that it's cut out, but let me just see. Just give me a yes, I'm still there. You're back. Okay, so I'm back. It's still saying that I'm not back. It says trying to reconnect. Due to poor wireless connection, your video has been paused. Bizarre. However, okay, so I'll just get my iPad up here so I can see. I'm not having much luck with technology. I love you, laptop. I do love you. Please work. All right, so I'm just going to assume that, put that up there so I can see. And if it cuts out on that, because this main video says it stopped. Bizarre. All right, we love bizarre. So what was I saying? Where was I up to? It's the last thing that I said. Did the vortexes, stretching the neck, wasn't it? So the stretching of the neck, stretching wherever you've got pain. I know that, I mean, it's counterintuitive, but we're talking about where there's no, you know, if you've got a great wound, then you're not going to go stretching the wound, are you? But if it's muscular or nerve or something like that, or especially energetic, but everything's energy, then stretching assists. So, you know, stretching the whole body is really helpful to get a whole body energetics moving, okay? So stretching. Spindle selling. Spindle selling is like mini pinches, like butterfly pinches, if that makes sense. So for instance, if I had a injury to my arm, I might just do these tiny little pinches, just tiny little pinches, and it sends messages through the nervous system in a way that almost hacks the the pain one. So I don't want to go too far into that and get too complex, but tiny little spindle cell pinches, lightly pinching the center of the area of the pain that triggers the spindle cell sort of mechanism. It sends a signal to the brain that the pain's no longer necessary, in a nutshell. So that's a really good one. So anything else I want to say about that? Spindle selling. It's like hitting the reset button. Because again, sometimes the messages just get a little warped. Okay. What else do I want to say? And we've got magnets, but I don't think I'm going to go into magnets because you have to know a little bit more than I probably am wanting to share tonight, because this isn't like a class as such, although before I get to Tammy's, because Tammy was asked, I haven't forgotten Tammy, I want to say that if I get a pain in my tooth, or in a muscle, the first thing that I do, really, the number one thing I do, is I look at what meridian goes through, or what tooth that is related to a meridian. So each tooth is related to a meridian. Each muscle is related to a meridian. And when you understand that, then you can work that meridian to see whether it's over energy or under energy. And there's numerous ways of working meridians, but you could just flush it, or you could hold the beginning and ending point of the meridian. So for instance, if you had a pain in your mid back. There's a spleen muscle there, and you might hold the beginning, so the side of the big toe. So I'm not going to get into points and whatnot. You could look all that up, but you could hold the beginning and ending point for spleen to assist regardless of whether it's over or under energy, because I've got to assume that you don't know how to test whether it is or isn't. So I've got to give you tools that are simplified, yeah? So it's still saying that I'm not connected, but on my iPad I can see that I'm connected. So I don't know. All right, Tammy was asking, because this question might take us off a little bit. So they're just a handful of little tools that if you have a pain, or if your children have a pain, or that you could try out. Yeah, it's bizarre, man. Welcome. All right, so Tammy, what was her question again? So she leaves in a bad mood, let alone achy feet. Okay. Lots of things, lots of different ways we could go, and this is why tracking is good. So what I would firstly say, because you know that if you follow me, you know I'm all about earthing, right? Yeah, it's still saying I'm not connected and going shh, but we know that I'm connected. All right, so Tammy, so everybody really, are you earthed? So Tammy, are you earthing well? Because you might be gardening or landscaping, but if there's stress around that, or if you don't like it, do you like your job? Do you like what you're doing? The thing is that it doesn't matter what our job or role is. It's more around, how we are about it. If we really resent, or, the people that we're working with impact us in particular ways, or whatever it might be, that can throw the earthing off. It literally shifts the polarity. So we talk about that nearly every week, because literally it impacts our health and wellness. It actually creates pain as well. So, inflammation, pain in the feet, that's my first hit would be, what are your what are the earthing energies doing? What are your conductors doing? So we've got our bladder conductor, or like pole. We've got our stomach pole, and we've got our kidney pole that assist us to earth. So Tammy, actually, what I'm going to do, I feel like I just want to just quickly scan that. So let me know if you're still there, and you want me to just quickly scan what's going on for you, because that's my first feel. When you're not grounded well, it impacts everything. It's literally the nervous system, because our electrical charge needs somewhere to deposit what it's burnt, and that is the main pole that goes through the center of the body and into the ground. And so it's a little bit more advanced earthing, but that's sort of what I'm feeling for you. So let me just see if Tammy's, I don't want to scan her if she's not wanting me to. So so if I don't hear, we'll move on to something else. I would also look at what time of the day the shift in your mood or your being starts, because the meridians have a time of day where they are refueling and replenishing. And often if you have something happen at the same time or around the same time, or that 2-hour window regularly, it's an indication that that refueling of your systems, there's something else going on there, and I'd be curious to look at, what's going on there. So I'm just going to look on my iPad because I don't see anything from Tammy. Okay. I'm just scanning to see what else would be helpful. So spooning the feet would be helpful. After work, spoon the feet, get your polarities back where they need to be, dependent on what the earth's doing. So, we would just spoon the feet, do our kidney, which is the flipping. You could also use selenite and just put selenite, this piece, where was I? I was doing something. I can't remember where I was now. And I had a pain in my ankle, which is, because I know the meridians, I knew that it was to do with kidney on one of my feet. So I didn't want to stop work, whatever I was doing. So I put my selenite on the floor. Sometimes I'll just put it in the bottom of my shoe if it fits, but if not, I'll put it on the floor and I put my foot on it, and I continued working and the pain moved through. Because this also helps with that polarity or that grounding. So if you're having trouble or problems grounding. And the reason that I'm focusing on that for Tammy is because it feels like it's a stress response. And stress responses throw our energies out, make them irregular, which impact our earthing. So that's sort of how I got to that, if you were wondering. All right, what else are we going to talk about? We've been going about 40 minutes. We could talk about magnets a little bit, but let me just see. So I've talked about the muscles. Now, muscles can also be irregular. Just see there's a new comment. I've sent you a Facebook link to my friend to follow. Oh, great. Thank you. Alexa has a question. You can ask a question. You can ask questions at any time, because what I do, I'm scrolling back and forth. So yeah, ask me a question. My energy's quite sort of slow tonight. It's not a good or bad way, it just is. So I'm sort of just plodding along tonight. I don't know if you noticed. How to connect with God re-meditation. How to connect with God re-meditation. Oh, what a beautiful question. Do you know what, Alexa? I have been talking about something very similar most of the day to different people in different ways. What I call the beloved is God, or even, when I say the great mother, it doesn't matter how you label the energy, or are there any other ways? I have a block. Now, we'll just put I have a block to the side, because if that's where you're coming from, then you will have a block. Let's look at it as, at the moment, the signals you may be on one signal rather than the other. You know, there are different frequencies or different channels. They all lead there eventually. However, some are stronger than the other. So rather than thinking of it as a block, think of it as the strength of your radio signal, what you transmit. And it is getting there. See, we're never separated. That's the thing. There is no separation. Anything that creates the illusion or the understanding that you're separate is not what I'm about. And people that continue that type of teaching, I turn and I walk away because there is no separation. What in my experience, my direct experience, is that when we have veils or sheaths, I call them, which really are there to protect us, they're not a bad thing, they're there to protect us. Yes, Alex is saying, yes, that's the word, strength of my wavelength. Yeah, so it's not, because what I'm trying to do is get you and others as well, and I do this for myself, we change the language to empower ourselves. So our language can keep us small too, or feeling small. I'm finding it hard to cry, laugh, release myself. Oh, that's Yalini. Welcome. Okay, so I'm just connecting now, right? We don't need to go into an hour meditation necessarily. Just being. It's so simple. Our minds try to make it so complex. Being in that chant that you mentioned earlier, being in song, being in dance, sitting in nature, there is no separation. What I feel that you're asking really is possibly a felt sense of what you see, feel, sense, know. So if you're feeling that you're not connected, shift that piece alone. Shift it, because you're always connected. You are the spark thrown forward. You are an aspect of that. I am that I am. Okay, so when you're feeling that you aren't, correcting that within the self, within the mind, the lower mind, the humanness of us that says, I can't feel it or I can't see it, so it mustn't be. It's always and forever. You're eternal. There's no separation. So, and it sounds, I might be going on a little bit, but I really want you to, all of you to hear that. We always are. So it's what is that neutral aspect of us, is that part of the greater. And last week I was talking about, which links to the earthing and the polarity, is that when we're embodied, when we are incarnated, that neutrality, it's neither positive nor negative, it just is what comes in. That's what we are. When I say the word are, it's in motion. We're are-ing. We are it. You see? Doing, being, areing. It's outside of what our mind can comprehend because it's outside of the duality. But that's what we are, all right? So that's, I just needed to get that because I'm feeling it. It feels like the rest is the doing and being. You already are it. So I suppose I'm answering your question, but I'm answering it it's almost in a contradictory way, because you're asking the question from the polarity, and I'm answering it from the polarity plus. Okay, so because I'm incarnated, I'm human. The human aspect of me is here on this Facebook Live speaking to you. However, the eternal aspect of me with the knowing of this to be, right, that you are, is in between the positive, negative, that we what would you call it? We inhabit while we're here on earth. So I don't want you to understand that. I want you to just feel it. Just feel it. It's often when I'm speaking about that type of our eternal self, it's beyond the mind, so we can't understand it necessarily. What I tend to do is bring it into metaphor so that our mind, our lower mind, can understand it. But at this point, to answer Alexa's question, I don't want to do that. I want you to just feel the aspect of your eternal self and just remember that which you are. Okay, so she's saying, when I talk to God, I get silence. I hear silence, sounds weird, but get angel. That's a big question. Let me just see if I can get the rest of it. But get angel noise? Is that what you're saying? So are you hearing tones? Because that you get angel. I think you're saying when you speak to God, or that energy of all there is, the supreme source energy. Yes. Now, I used to tongue-in-cheek say, if you speak to God and he speaks back, it's not God, because God does not speak. Okay? However, if you are asking, and that's the other thing. All right, so we're going on another path now. So we've done the pain. So if you came here to hear about the pain, you can go back to the recording. When you are asking for something, depending on where you're at with your frequency, how you can receive it. So we're transceivers, we transmit and receive. How you receive, the quicker you receive or manifest, whatever you want to call it, in my direct experience, is related to how clear that frequency is. So how unveiled you are. So what that could mean, we'll just use Alexa as an example because she's asked the question, is that you may ask a question and then a week later you get your answer, but you forgot what you asked. So I say that, remember what you ask, write it down. In fact, I don't have my journal here that I was using last night, I don't think. Because I've been getting so much information. It's like bam, 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 bam. It's so fast and constant that it was like just reading. I say that your life is like your book. You're just reading the book. And, you know, it's almost like there's so much on each page that I just started drawing it last night, and how it all links, and how it's quite complex. So I'm not going to go into it now. I might do another session on that, because it's, there's a lot of complexities in over so many years, and the cycles and the timelines, and how they're all merging into the now. So remember what you ask, and keep an eye out for the metaphor that's in the world. So your life is the book, is what I call it, as a metaphor. So, for instance, 2 hours before I came onto this live, I went for a walk, and I noticed particular patterns of animals that I was seeing. So I won't go into it, but it's just, you know, and it's not analyzing, it's just noticing. You're just with the world. I was noticing the colors of the clouds. I was noticing the particular energies of the power lines, and I was just noticing the field. Okay, I'm not thinking about what I have to do. I'm not on my phone. I'm just present with where I'm at, and reading the field as I walk. If we do that more and more, when we speak, whether that's through prayer, through meditation, through words, through song, through creative ways, you know, for me, I paint my prayers, all my energies, how I create code and data through the energetics of my artworks. And as I keep moving through, the answers come through the artwork as well. So it's a call and response. But most of us aren't aware of the different language our answers can come in. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, when you're asking for an answer, so something else just came in then, so I'm going to just put that there. And so when you're asking for an answer, be open to the many different ways that that answer can come in, because we're always answered. So Alexa's saying that she gets it in numbers, or something about the angel numbers. Oh, I get what you're saying. So yeah, you get particular code, or you're seeing particular code. You will be getting answers in many, many other ways too. So often, okay, I'm gonna share this and just see if there's any other questions. I'll share this. So when I first started out, I didn't feel that I had direct connection. So I would use tools. That's what we all do. We use tools until we have direct access, because then we don't need so many tools anymore, unless we want to still have some fun, right? When I was young, I read tarot. I did palmistry. You know, I had all these tools when I was younger. I meditated, I chanted, I, you know, sang, I did my artwork and all that. Had all of these different ways of, really it's prayer, right? Of language. So, you know, sometimes I get cards out here, just as an example. But when you have, and you've learned how to, and it takes practice, it's like learning any language. Even your questions and how you bring them in tells me things, right? It's like that subtle. who's coming in, what cadence it is, you know, what things are asked and whether that's connected to something else. And then I get a feel and I get a sense, and, you know, it's all information. And we don't want to get too overwhelmed by it, because I used to when I was younger, because I'm very analytical. I don't want to know the ins and outs of everything. Now I just relax and allow, and I just see it, and it comes in. But that's practice. So practice viewing, practice being, right? And then you get to the R-ing, which is outside of being. Okay? Hope that made some sense. It's about the feel of that eternal aspect of you, rather than just the physical. It's all of it. So the physical or the human aspect of us wants to know in a particular way, and when we surrender in a way to that, that's where we get access to the other ways of knowing. So how the birds come in, how the sounds come in, how the numbers show up, how that, you know, you might start off with books. That was my thing. I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of books. I just loved books. I don't even read anymore. Like I, you know, my books, I've given thousands away, but I've still got a lot of books. But yeah, I don't need the tools anymore. It's like you use the tools almost like any animal. You know, we're mammals, right? So we use tools as an extension of our hand. But I've always been the type of person that would say, well, what if I'm, you know, lost in the desert and I don't have, you know, these external tools, then what? So I always wanted to know how to do things with the most minimal, and then anything extra like selenite or, you know, all the things that I've told you about, that's just a bonus and can be fun, you know, the crystals and the instruments and whatnot, because all of those sounds and colors and frequencies are within us anyway. So, so I went a bit sort of abstract on that, Alexa. So if I didn't answer your question, you can ask anything that you like. I'm here, and I mean, I'll let you know if I don't know, or yeah, if I have an answer or an experience of that, I'll share. But if I don't, then I'll just tell you. Yeah, I love books still. It's just that, you know, how I use books now, I'll grab one off the shelf and open it and just see what the page is, and then go, oh, that's interesting, I'll put the book back. So, oh, Yalini has a question, does she? Let me see. Let me just scroll. Let's see what that is. Yalini has a question. Look, there's lots of different meditations and ways, just to finish off on that. And then I'll find that question. Is, again, I talked about this last week. So light, sound, and presence. So when I'm listening, and I'm not listening for words. I'm not listening really for anything. I'm just really, it's about the stillness, because when you're still enough, you hear the still voice within, which are the tones. They're not words as such. And when you get the tones, you're viewing, and the tones create light and pattern. And so as you're raising your frequency, or you're moving through your evolutionary development as a human being, you're able to hear more, which allows you to see more, it could be vice versa, but this is, I always go the hearing, the sound comes first. The word was not language, like a word as we know it. The word was what I'm talking about. First there was the word, right? Then the light, and that gives you the presence. Light, sound, presence, or the stillness gives you the, you know, the access to the internal harmonics that then give you, you can ride the harmonics, so to speak. So when I say ride, you're just listening with the ear of the heart and following the tones and the sounds which take you to these, it's like Jacob's ladder, right? You're climbing the ladder through the sound and the light to the beloved. So that could be a beautiful practice. If, you know, generally if people say, you know, what's your practice? That's my practice. I mean, I do other things here or there when the mood takes me, but where I'm at right now, I don't do the same thing day in, day out other than live my life, because my life is my meditation. My life is my meditation now. My life is my spiritual practice. There's no separation. And so that's taken me a lot of years to get to understand that. But light, sound, presence. And the reason that I love that is because you don't have to sit for hours on end. You can just stop and listen at any moment, any time of the day, and then move on. But you do that regularly through the day, and eventually your life becomes your meditation, because your life, you're present within your life. So, oh, thanks, Nan. She's saying, I love your experiential wisdom. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome. And I didn't find Yeleni's question, so I'll go back and find it. And if I can, hi Iris. Welcome, Eleni. Okay, she's saying, yes, I get that, but I say within that I am the one, but to release part of my feelings. Okay, I need to go back a bit because I'm not sure what that means. Just connected. Yes, I can do that. In flow, we are one. Is that the question? I get that, but I say within that I am the one, but to release part of my feelings. Okay. I think it's slightly out of context now, so I just got to feel into what that means. Unless Yeleni is still there, she can clarify a bit more for me. I'm drinking hot chocolate tonight. I never usually do. Or maybe that's why I'm feeling so mellow and full of love. And okay, I'm not quite sure about that question, or whether it actually is a question or a statement. It sort of feels that it's a statement, but to release part of my feelings. Okay, I'm going to go this way, and it may be completely off track, but this is what I'm feeling that might be resonant for a few people rather than just one person, is the soul feels. It feels. So when we're talking about releasing feeling, I feel. So feeling is a language for me. So I suppose I'm coming from that place, that when I read your questions or what's on the screen, the words have their meaning, yes, but I'm feeling it with my body. And often the words and the feel are incongruent. And so for me, the feel outranks in a way the written word. So that's where I'm going with that. So we don't necessarily want to release a feel. We want to go into the feeling. If you are feeling even a pain, so let's bring it back to pain for a moment. If you have a pain, it is your body, your subconscious lives within the physical body at the basic human template. When you can pull the subconscious mind out of the body to the higher mind, then you don't need to experience as much through the physical body, because you get your information before it has to hit the physical body. And that's why when you are more proficient in reading the field, okay, there's the external field, but there's the internal landscape as well. When you're more proficient or practiced at that, then the body doesn't need to scream at you, which is what your pain is. And you don't need to go through the experiences in such a constrictive way. Now, we're still in polarity, positive, negative. So it's not that things won't happen to you, but how you approach them or view them is very different, because you're viewing from a neutral space of the positive, negative. It's neither good nor bad. It just is, right? So take it a step back to, if you have a pain, just say it's a headache or that shoulder pain. A few people have had shoulder pains lately. And you breathe into that. Because even breathing, well, breath is, my internet's gone out for a minute. Breath is a great way to move through pain and energy as well. So breathing into it, but talking to the body, relating to the body, having a connection, like your body is your beloved. Because remember, you're not your body. You drive the body. So it's an aspect of you, but it isn't you. So how could you have a relationship that's different to the body, so that when it has something to say, it doesn't need to scream at you? It can just whisper gently, and you go, that's what you need. Okay, my love, I'll get that for you. And you get that, and the body doesn't need to get any louder. Okay? It's just so beautiful, really. Can't tell you how beautiful it is when you relate to the self in that way. And ultimately, that's what all of this is about, the relationship to the self, not myself or the little self, the self. And there's numerous higher aspects of the self. But just to be able to get to that, relating to the physical body in a way that you have a relationship with it. And then the next level is the relationship to that next aspect of the self. So let me just read these comments. So Alexa's saying, Yalini cannot feel emotions, cry or feel laughter, and unable to express this. She's not cried for the past 5-6 years. Okay. I do remember seeing that way back. Okay, thank you for bringing the question back around. Appreciate it. Yeah, I do remember seeing that. Okay. And again, I mean, so what I said is relevant. When you are cut off from the physical body and that relationship with, then we can't feel. So Okay, I've been writing a couple of chapters. One's about resilience and burnout, and I'll tell you about that one. So I'm a sensitive, have been pretty much all my life, but there were many years where I couldn't feel, and you could stab me, you could cut me, you could pinch me, you could punch me, you could kick me, and it literally did nothing because I had numbed so much. Um, that you know, I was numb. And I'm not saying Yeleni's that, but there, you know, we go through life and um, there are mechanisms that aren't bad. They're what help us survive. They are beautiful gifts that help us to survive the situations we're in. Through that, um, still understanding that the soul could scream. The body had lost its voice, but the soul aspect could scream. And so finding ways through that, which is a lot of the things that I've told you over time, finding your way through to be able to have a relationship with the physical body and love that physical body and not see it as betraying you or me or us. Because when we've experienced trauma, I was going to say any type of trauma, but complex trauma, which means relational trauma. Some other human being is involved. If it's a car accident or a fire or flood, things like that, often it's a different reaction of the nervous system. However, if it's relational trauma, we numb and we blame ourselves. Fernando, hello, my love. Good morning from Brazil. I missed you. So what was I saying? If we aren't connecting, so at the end, and I've written a poem about this, but at the end of my story, what I basically said was I was refusing to be resilient. The reason I was refusing to be resilient in an aspect, because resilience just means, you know, you have the capacity to bounce back. But another aspect of it, how some people see it, is that we've got to be strong and soldier on, right? I'm an ex-soldier. I had to keep going, right? And so to do that, you numb yourself. What I did was I found a way to be completely present, which is what we're talking about now. Completely present and be able to feel deeply, to be able to feel everything. And how do I put it into words? A lot of this is difficult to speak about because it's, yeah, so bear with me because I'm telling you about things that almost like the felt sense of what something was like. So having a relationship with the self, listening to her, that was my lesson. So I got to a point where I was refusing to be resilient. I was refusing to be strong how people knew me to be. Okay. I'm stronger than I've ever been, but that's because I'm vulnerable now. Vulnerability is courageous. Vulnerability is what gives you courage. Okay. And that's the type of strength that I want to have. The strength I had in my youth was not crying, not reacting. You could do whatever you wanted to me and it's water off a duck's back. But it was for a different reason. It's because I had blocked you out. Now it's water off a duck's back because I feel it deeply. I move it through, but I'm sitting in my neutrality, my center, right? Because I've integrated all the aspects of the self. So if we're not feeling I'm not saying this is Yalini, I'm just giving an example of that's more broad for all of you, that when you find that you're not wanting to feel or not wanting to go into an experience because you're worried about what you might feel, so that's anxiety as well, yeah? When we sort of, and it's practice too, start with little things. Going in, what's it feel like? And if you are working with things that feel beyond yourself, that's where you get assistance. You get help, so that if you do feel that you're going to spiral, that person's there for you. A mentor, it's a lot of the work that I do. I hold that space for people. I take people to the edge of that space and assist them to come back, give them the tools so they can go in, come out, go in, come out. Eventually they can do that themselves and go into their shadow aspect or their pain or their whatever it is, and they have the resources or the tools or techniques to be able to come back, bring themselves back out. So I'm just feeling into that. So it is about feeling. And when we're cut off from aspects of the self, that might be the physical, then we are less likely to be able to laugh, cry, and whatnot. So even doing this Facebook Live, there's been a few times that I've been on the verge of tears because I'm feeling so much, yet I'm centered. Does that make sense? Like how I feel, it's like I wasn't able to hold what I feel now when I was younger because I didn't have the tools, I didn't have teachers that understood, I didn't have mentors, I didn't have family that could support. Right? So my only alternative that I thought back then was to cut off the sensitivities and basically be, almost like the robot going through life in comparison to what I am now anyway. So so how can you access that part of the self? What's coming to mind is how I used to work, and I'd still sort of say the same thing really, with people that were unable to look at themselves or their body in the mirror. These small, very, very small steps in it, just touching the self. A gentle touch is caring. It's how do we be kind to ourselves? Because sometimes we can't get to love. We're not ready to get to love for whatever reason. You hear those stories about people that have loved ones that are passed and they go numb or they aren't able to express. And if they do express joy or laughter, they feel guilty, those sorts of things. There is so much guilt and shame put on us in society. So that's what I talked about too. The shame of our environment and our cultural ways. We're all from slightly different places. There's different cultures in Brazil and in America and here and whatnot. But I think you'll be able to relate your own to what I've just said. So who's there? Who else is there? What do we want to talk about now? I think if there's any addition to what I've said or clarity that you want, because I'm just feeling into it, so I don't actually know what I've just said. I couldn't repeat it if I tried. But so if you have questions or you want clarification on anything. How are you, Fernando? Are you still there? How are you, my brother? So I know there's a few people watching. Maybe it's a nice, I don't know, nice time to wind up. Just thinking, you know, a lack of pain or a lack of, what am I trying to say? When I'm thinking about the story that I was writing or am writing, and going back into what that was like, the numbing was actually more painful when I reflect than the feelings I was trying to block out, if that makes sense, when I reflect back on it. So it's interesting to reflect on, you know, our survival mechanisms, or what we feel we need to do at the time to survive, or what our nervous system does to assist us to survive over time, and what would be more life-giving is the opposite ends of the spectrum. But there you go again. We live in a polarity. It's this extremes of, you know, black, white, positive, negative, yes, no, good, bad, all of that. So that's why, you know, which wraps it all up together really, that when we come back to the center and the neutrality of the center, which gives us direct access, but it also gives us access to perceive and experience all of it without necessarily making judgment on whether that pain is necessary or unnecessary, or it's a good thing or a bad thing. Because pain is a language. It's telling you something. So, yeah, we're going back to what we talked about earlier, was what have you asked? What are you needing to know or be shown or have clarity on, and how that comes in. And often it comes in through our physical. So listening to the pain, listening to the part of the body, the knee, the shoulder, the head, whatever it is, and going into that and asking, having a relationship with. Because when I do the medical intuitive work, literally that's what I'm doing for you. So I'm in a way saying, if you do that for yourself, eventually you will get your own answers, so you won't have to come to me. Okay? So I'm going into the body and I'm saying, what do you want? So I'm just going to use Alexa as an example. What do you need Alexa to know? What are you trying to tell her? Is there some way that I can bridge that language gap? And I get the information, and I share that information, and sometimes more will come. Sometimes that's all that was needed, and there you go. So I can see now, I hope you can see how everything we've talked about actually does, it all relates. I thought we were going off on a little bit of a side tangent there, but it actually all does relate, because our pain and our felt, you know, sometimes we feel, I was going to say suffering. I just call it expansion and contraction, because that's all there is. We're expanding and contracting. And one of those will feel good to you and one won't, but it's all in the mind anyway, because they're both just a movement. One's not better than the other. Do you see? That's the polarity or the duality. So when you feel a pain and you understand that it's a language, then the pain isn't such an issue anymore. Does that make sense? It's like, you know, if you knew that you had to go through something to get to the other side, the mind almost goes, oh, well, of course you have to go through that. So there's no point, you know, ruminating about it or getting upset about it, because it's just the process of getting to there. But that's what your pains are. You know, when we give birth, we go through this process. We, you know, I mean, we might complain here and there about the birth process, but afterwards, it's like we forget. You know, we have our birthing stories. However, most of us go back and have another one, right? It's a process. And this is a process of birthing the self. That's how I see it. We're birthing the self. And so the aches and pains and the process for you to get awake in those areas may feel constrictive. And if you can start to just play with shifting the way that you see what's happening, the pain in itself or the constrictiveness in itself almost releases. You see? All right. So, anything else? Any comments, questions, personal experiences that you might want to share? So what did I say that I would share in the comments? Can't remember now. There was 2 things I said I would share in the comments. It'll come back to me. All right. We feel done? Are we cooked? Are we cooked? Doesn't seem to be any other questions. All right. Well, if you want to know more about anything that I've just said, you know where to find me. You can private message me. Just remember, I don't have a phone, so if you are trying to call me or text me, I will not be getting them. And I don't have any plans to get another phone. I don't see the need right now. However, when I do feel the need, then I will. So you can message me. I have Facebook and email. You can also email me, and we can do Skype or Zoom or Messenger calls if you would like a personal reading or energy tracking, or you just want a consult. So if you've got something that you just would like to talk to somebody about that you think is a little bizarre, or you're just looking for some clarity on something that you're experiencing, you could do a 30-minute chat about that, which is what I call consult. And if the energetics come out in that, then you can decide whether you wanted to book in for a full session later on. But this, you know, whatever you're needing, whatever you're wanting, I'm here. So if you don't get to put it in these Monday calls, or if it's more in depth or more personal and you don't want to do it publicly, then privately message me or email me, and I will sort out a time to connect, and we can delve and dive into whatever it is that you're needing at the time. Okay, I'm going to say see you later. It doesn't seem like anybody's got any questions, so you'll leave it at that. If this was helpful, please share, and maybe give us a like up the top so that other people, for some reason, if you don't have the likes, people won't listen. And oh, Shelley, that was close. So Shelley's just saying, curious about your charges for a session. Oh, okay, that old sticker. So are you, what currency are you wanting? So Australian dollar is, what is it? Half an hour is 80 Australian, which is, I think, around 50 US or something like that. I'm not sure. I'll place the conversions in here if people want to know. A full session is 180 Australian. So the Australian dollar is pretty poor in comparison to other countries. So that's a good thing. A full session is not by the hour, and that's why I charge what I do. It's not like it's an hour and that's it. It's it's the tracking, and then sorting out what comes from the tracking, and then I give you aftercare and put it into an email. So it takes, that's what the time is, and any other follow-up. So it's not, you know, you have a session and that's it. You can check in along the way, you know, let me know how you're going, and then we can tweak things. So that's all included. So yeah, it's more than you turn up, you get the session, and that's it. You get aftercare as well. It's all included. So hope that helps. Otherwise, I'm here most weeks. If you've got questions, you can ask here. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, if you want a little piece of something from, you know, for free, ask here. And if it's more personal or in depth, or, you know, because obviously it will be, all the energy will be for you and not for the collective, we get much more, and we can go in very different ways. So yeah, it can be trauma, it can be emotional, it can be your developmental. I was talking a lot about that today. What we see and feel and experience at different levels of our evolution. And I was talking to a scientist in south of Spain, and we were sharing images and information of our direct experiences and how they were very similar, and it was very cool. But it again made me realize that I don't speak about that so much anymore, and it might be helpful to start talking about that sort of stuff if people are interested. So anyway, if you've got any ascension, awakening and ascension questions, you know, that you can contact me for those sorts of things as well. Alrighty. I think that's it. I've got some summits coming up, or some, well, they call them summits, July and September, but I'll let you know closer. They're free. But yeah, I'm getting lots of interviews lately, so it's great in a way because it gets the information out there. So the first one is more about the earthing stuff, which I talk about a lot. But the second one, I haven't actually done it yet, but it's for younger people, and around the nervous system health and anxiety. So that's slightly different, but it's something I've been writing about. So I'm sort of keen to talk to 15 to 23-year-olds or 25-year-olds, yeah, to assist them with how they move through the world and how they can move through this maze. So yeah, that's something new coming up. All right, gonna love you and leave you until we meet again. it's still saying that we're not connected. So I don't know what's going on with my technology. But at least it's held up for us to share. Okay, I shall see you next week, if not before. Mwah.